For centuries, the British monarchy has been presented as an institution of impeccable poise, a living tableau of duty, tradition, and silent endurance. Its ideal representative was not a man of feeling, but a figure of function, their heartbeats synchronized with the pendulum of protocol, not the tumult of human emotion. Within this framework, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, was long perceived as the spare, the spirited, perhaps even reckless counterpoint to the serene heir. Yet the seismic narrative shift he and his wife, Meghan, have ignited is not merely about scandal or exit. It is, at its core, a profound and public exercise in emotional articulation, a rare and raw unmasking that challenges a millennia-old cult of stoicism. To understand Harry's emotional revelation is to witness a personal healing journey collide with an institutional reformation, forging a new language of vulnerability from within one of the world's most rigid structures. The Armored Facade: Stoicism as a Royal Inheritance. To appreciate the rarity of Harry's emotional expression, one must first acknowledge the emotional landscape he inherited. The stiff upper lip is not merely a British cultural trope. For the royal family, it is a survival mechanism and a brand identity. Public displays of feeling are seen as vulnerabilities, cracks in the imperial armor that could undermine the aura of untouchable stability. This ethos is tragically personal for Harry. His most formative memory, seared into global consciousness, is that of a small boy walking behind his mother's coffin, his face a mask of bewildered grief, flanked by stoic, marching adults. The world wept for him, but the institution around him demanded composure. In that moment, the blueprint was set. Private pain must be absorbed silently into public duty. Harry's subsequent adolescence and young adulthood can be read as a rebellion against this emotional straitjacket, albeit an unfocused one. The party prince persona, the infamous Las Vegas trip, the military escapades, these were outbursts of a spirit struggling for oxygen, acting out because the vocabulary to speak out did not exist. He was labeled a loose cannon, but the cannon was loaded with unfelt grief. His candid admission in later years that he sought therapy only after being very close to a complete breakdown on numerous occasions underscores a critical truth. For decades, his emotional life was not a system to be understood, but a pressure cooker to be managed, until it nearly exploded. The entry of Meghan Markle into Harry's life acted as the catalyst that transformed simmering distress into articulate revelation. Here was someone from a culture that valued personal narrative and therapeutic language, who encouraged him not just to feel, but to interrogate his feelings. More powerfully, his relationship with Meghan and the birth of their son Archie became a piercing mirror. Holding his own child, he was forced to reconfront the abandoned, grieving boy he once was. The instinct to protect his new family from the very system he felt had failed his mother became an emotional imperative stronger than any protocol. This paternal lens sharpened his memories into urgent testimony. In his Netflix series and memoir Spare, he didn't just state he was unhappy, he furnished visceral, emotional evidence. He spoke of the panic attacks and severe anxiety he endured during royal engagements, the pure panic feeling of being trapped in a goldfish bowl. He recounted arguments with his brother, William, where everything was red mist, and described using alcohol and drugs to mask and numb the pain. This is not the language of palace press releases. It is the lexicon of therapy, of PTSD, of a man meticulously deconstructing his own trauma. The rarity lies in its specificity. He moved from the royal we to the profoundly vulnerable I, detailing the physiological and psychological cost of a life in the gilded cage. Harry's emotional narrative rests on three profound pillars, each a taboo subject in the royal context. At the heart of his story is the ghost of Diana. His revelation that he for years believed his mother might have faked her death to escape the pressure is a heartbreaking testament to a child's unprocessed trauma. He spoke of wanting his wife to have a relationship with his mother, of seeking signs from her in the natural world. This open channeling of enduring, magical grief shattered the image of a prince who had moved on. It humanized him as a perpetual son, forever navigating loss. Perhaps his most destabilizing revelation for the institution is his framing of royal life not as a sacred duty, but as a transactional and at times treacherous corporate environment. He spoke of a hierarchy where his family's position as spares meant inherent inequality.
He alleged calculated leaks and briefings against him and Meghan by their own household, framing it not as rivalry, but as a profound betrayal of trust. The emotional core here is one of deep-seated hurt and confusion, the feeling that his family was also his employer, and a ruthless one at that. This conflates familial love with corporate strategy, a psychologically damaging bind. Underpinning everything is Harry's quest for what he terms his authentic self. This modern therapeutic concept is anathema to an institution where the self is subsumed into the crown. His emotional revelation is in essence a declaration that he values psychological integrity over symbolic function. His tearful admission that he and William were on different paths carries the weight of a mourning, not just for a brotherly relationship, but for the shared identity he had to relinquish to save himself.
The global fascination with Harry's story transcends celebrity gossip. It resonates because it mirrors a broader cultural shift. In an era where mental health advocacy, mindfulness, and breaking generational trauma are mainstream conversations, Harry has become an unlikely poster figure. He is a man using his privilege not to maintain silence, but to buy his way out of it, offering his story as both cautionary tale and roadmap. Men in particular see in Harry a challenge to toxic masculinity. Here is a former soldier, a self-professed gerbil in a wheel of adrenaline and aggression, openly discussing therapy, crying, and prioritizing his emotional well-being over a predefined role of rugged stoicism. He embodies the struggle of a generation of men, taught to suppress, now learning, publicly, messily, to feel. Furthermore, in the context of his marriage to a biracial woman, his emotional stance becomes a protective, anti-racist one. His anger at the alleged racial biases within the media and the institution is framed not as political opinion, but as the fierce, emotional response of a husband and father. It transforms institutional critique into a matter of the heart. Skeptics, particularly in the British press and establishment, frame Harry's emotional openness not as authenticity, but as a strategic commodity, the therapy speak trope used to monetize grievance. They argue he weaponizes vulnerability while decrying invasion of privacy, creating a lucrative narrative of victimhood. There is undeniable tension here. His liberation is packaged in multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix and Penguin Random House. This duality makes him a complex, often contradictory figure, seeking private peace through profoundly public confession. Yet, to dismiss his journey as purely strategic is to commit the very sin he rails against, denying the validity of his lived emotional experience. The rawness in his retelling, the palpable anger and pain that sometimes slips his careful media training, suggests a man working through real trauma, even if on the global stage. The process may be monetized, but the pain appears genuine. The ultimate impact of Harry's emotional revelation lies in its challenge to the monarchy's future. He has, perhaps irrevocably, demonstrated that the human cost of the stiff upper lip can be catastrophic for the individuals behind the titles. As the institution grapples with relevance in the 21st century, it faces a dilemma. Can it evolve to make space for this kind of emotional honesty? Or must it forever demand the suppression of the personal for the sake of the symbolic? King Charles III, who himself once spoke of being unable to marry his love, now presides over a family publicly fractured by the very issues of emotion and authenticity. The crown's resilience has always been its ability to adapt just enough to survive. Harry's journey poses the most intimate test of that adaptability yet. Prince Harry's rare emotional side, once hidden behind a cheeky grin and a military uniform, is now the very center of his identity. His revelation is more than a personal catharsis. It is a cultural intervention. He has taken the unspoken rules of the world's most famous family and translated them into the universal language of mental health, generational trauma, and the search for self. In doing so, he has become a different kind of prince, not a prince of the realm, but a prince of hearts, leading a very public, very messy, and undeniably courageous charge against the silent suffering that once defined his birthright. His story suggests that perhaps the greatest duty any person has, royal or not, is not to a crown, but to the arduous, painful, and liberating work of their own healing. The world watched him bury his mother in silence. Now it listens as he finally, deafeningly, gives voice to the boy who was left behind.